Hello all. Today I will going to be give PPT presentation on research methodology subject for TYBBI. Today I will going to be start with chapter number 1, Introductions to Research. Now first thing I want to say that the word research is composed of two syllables, re and search. Re is a prefix meaning again, a new or over again. Search is a verb meaning to examine closely and carefully, to test and try or to probe. Research is a process of finding fact and arranging them in such a manner that information is obtained regarding any fact, figure or phenomenon. Research process has been conducted from the time since human being was first created, and it is never ending process. Now I will going to be explain that there are various number of objective of research. The first I will go with the to identify problem and a solution thereupon. The basic objective of research is to find what the problem is and where has it originated from. The problem may be relating to commerce, trade, finance, education, pure science or any such field. The research also aims at analytical the problem in the true spirit. Once this is done, a practical and an implementable solution can be recommended. Second one, to validate given law. We study various laws in social science like commerce and economics, such as law of demand, law of supply, law of production, theory X and Y. The research is undertaken to examine, validate whether these laws are still in operation. Even when given exception to the law was quoted, with the passage of time, there is a possibility that this exception might have been become a rule. Third one, to acquire pertinent information. Wealth of information is available both in print and electronic media. For example, as you want to know the meaning of research and browse it on Google. In a fraction of a second, lakhs of find will prop in. The aim of research is to acquire the most relevant or the pertinent information about the topic. Next, to propagate new theories. This is the most important and a widely acclaimed objective of research based on old theories. New theories can be developed through a proper research. For example, for a burn injury, the old theory was not to put water on it. But according to new theory, immediately a lot of water must be poured on the burn so that it can be saved from spective infection. Similarly, work hard is a good old slogan which is now replaced by work smart. Old theory was made in India, new theory is make in India. Next, to forecast future happening. This is a general notion that the future is uncertain, but we cannot stop ourselves from planning for future. The objective of research is to forecast or predict future with great extent of accuracy. There are various scientific studies which are part of research, wherein future can be predicted with 100% accuracy. The best example for this would be solar and a lunar eclipse. Next, to establish interrelationship, we found a kind of interrelationship between two or more variables. For interrelationship, various explanation can be offered. The objective of this is to offer and analyze what kind of interrelationship exists between two variables and offer explanation for it. For preparation for an student performance in the examination, because generally the student who prepare well will also perform well. There must be also be a negative relationship between the two for which a researcher may prove through an explanation. Next, to bring out new thought. The most positive objective of research is to bring a new thought for betterment of society and nation as a whole. The outcome of every type of research should provide to provoking ideas, which should help for improvement of work and enhancement of quality. The best example for this could be improved teaching method, evaluation scheme, quicker and error-free result, etc., which will all help educational institution and other stakeholders. Next, to add to the wealth of knowledge, the basic objective of research is to enrich and develop knowledge in various fields such as science, arts and commerce, management, information and communication, technology, etc. All this area poses abundant wealth of knowledge. Research should ensure that there is a value addition to the existing stock of knowledge. Next, to verify implementation of recommendation. Another objective of research is to check whether the recommendation or suggestion provided have been implemented or not. For this purpose, the prerequisite condition is that the researcher out of this efficient finding should ensure that the recommendation made for solving the problem identified are implementable and workable. And lastly, to access the success of implemented recommendation, many times that in a researcher after recommending implementable solution finds while verifying that his recommendation has been implemented but there is no benefit or positive outcome after its implementation. Therefore, the objective of research should be find out why the desired outcome was not achieved even after workable implementation and the effective recommendation for solving the identified problem. In this slide, we're going to be referring that there are various types of classification of research out there. The first type, which is known as a basic or pure research. Basic and pure research is a research done simply to find out something by examining anything. For instance, in some pure scientific research, scientists discover what properties various material possess. It is not for the sake of applying true properties to anything in particular, but simply to find out what properties there are. Pure mathematics is for the sake of seeing what happened, not to solve a problem. Next one, that next type is applied research. Now, in the applied research is defined as a systematic study to gain knowledge or understanding necessary to determine the means by which a recognized and specific need may be met. In industry, applied research include investigation oriented to discovering new scientific knowledge that has specific commercial objective with respect to product, process, or service. The investigation of some phenomena to discover whether its properties are appropriate to a particular need or want. In contrast, basic research investigate phenomena without a reference to a particular human needs and a want. Next one, that there is descriptive research. Descriptive research can be explained as a statement of affair as they are at present with a researcher have no control over the variable. Moreover, descriptive research may be characterized as simply the attempt to determine, describe or identify what is and why analytical research attempt to establish and why it is that way or how it came to be. Descriptive research is a aim at casting light on current issues or problem through a process of data collection that enables them to describe the situation more completely than was possible without employing the method. Next one, that will be your that analytical research. In an analytical research, the research has to use fact or information already available and analyze this to make a critical evaluation of a material. Analytical research is a specific type of research that involves critical thinking skill and the evaluation of fact and information relative to the research being conducted. A variety of the people, including student, doctor, and a psychologist, use analytical research during studies to find the most relevant information. And lastly, there is empirical research. The empirical research is a research using empirical evidence It is a way of gaining knowledge by means of direct and indirect observation or experience. Empiricism values such research more than other kind. Empirical evidence, the record of not one direct observation or experiences, can be analyzed quantitatively or qualitatively. Though the quantifying the evidence or making sense of it is qualitative form, a researcher can answer empirical question, which should be clearly defined and answerable with the evidence collected, usually called data. Research design varies by field and by the question being investigated. Now there are number of stages in scientific research process. We're going to be point wise. The first one, identification and selection of research problem. The starting point of a research is the selection of research topic and a problem. History teaches the continuity of the development and the progress of science. The point is that every age has to be own problem, numerous in number, which the following age either shows on cast aside as profitless and are replaced by new one. Next one, the formulation of research problem. There are two type of research problem, those which relate to states of nature and those which relate to relationship between variable. At the very outset, the researcher must single out the problem he wants to study. He must decide the general area of interest or aspect of a subject matter that he would like to inquire into. Initially, the problem may be stated in a broad, general way and then the ambiguities. If any relating to the problem be resolved, then the feasibility of a particular solution has to be considered before a working formulation of the problem can be set up. The next one, which is known as review of literature. Now, after defining a problem, the researcher has to do a literature survey connected with the problem. Literature survey is a collection of research publication, books, and other documentation related a defined problem. It is very essential to know whether the defined problem has already been solved. Status of the problem, technique that is useful to investigate the problem, and other related details on can survey. Next one, the formulation of a hypothesis. Hypothesis is done only after the survey of relevant literature and learning the present status of the field of research. It can be formulated based on previous research and observation. To formulate a hypothesis, a researcher should acquire enough knowledge in the topic of research and a reasonably deep insight about the problem. In formulating a hypothesis, construct operational definition of variable in the research problem. Next one, that will be your the formulation of research design. The research design create the foundation of the entire research work. The design will help perform the chosen task easily and in a systematic way. Once the research design is completed, the actual work can be initiated. The first step in the actual work is to learn the fact pertaining to the problem, particularly theoretical method, numerical technique, experimental technique, and other relevant data and tools necessary for the present study have to be collected and learned. Next one, which is known as sample design. A sample design is a definite plan for obtaining a sample for a given population. It refers to a technique or the producer the researcher would adopt in selecting items for the sample. Sample design may as well lay down number of items to be included in a sample, the size of the sample design which is determined before the data are collected. There are many sample design from which a researcher can choose. Some design are relatively more precise and easier to apply than others. Next, which is known as a data collection. A data collection is any process of preparing and collecting data. For example, as part of a process improvement or a similar project, the purpose of data collection is to obtain information to keep on record, to make decision about important issues or to pass information on to others. Data are primarily collected to provide information regarding a specific topic. Next one, that is data analysis. Analysis of data is a process of inspecting, cleaning, transforming, and modeling data with the goal of highlighting useful information. suggesting conclusion and the supporting decision making. Data analysis has multiple phases and approaches encompassing diverse techniques under a variety of names in different business science and a social science domain. Next one, that is hypothesis testing and interpretation of data. After analyzing the data, the researcher is in a position to the hypothesis. If any he had formulated earlier, do the facts support the hypothesis or they happen to be contrary? This is a usual question which should be answered while testing hypothesis. Various tests such as spike test, t-test, f-test have been developed by statisticians for the purpose. And lastly, which is known as a preparation of research report. Writing the research report requires carefully forethought. The major part of the final research report are listed as introduction first, secondly literature review, third is research design and or method, next result, and lastly conclusion. In this slide, we are going to be learn that what means by research design. Research design in general term can be referred to as scheme of work to be done or performed by a researcher during the various stages of research project. A research design is a framework or a blueprint for conducting the market project. In details are the procedure necessary for obtaining the information needed to structure or solve marketing research problem. In simple words, it is a general plan of how you will go about your research. Now we'll go with the importance or you can say significance of research design. The first significance is smooth sailing. In facilities the smooth sailing of a various research operation, thereby marketing research as efficient as possible, yielding maximum information with minimal expenditure of efforts, time, and money. Next importance is significant impact. It has a significant impact on the reliability of the result obtained. It does act as a firm foundation for the entire research. Third one, the help the investigator. It helps the investigator to organize his ideas in a cohesive manner so that the outcome of research is meaningful. Next importance is reduce inaccuracy. It reduces inaccuracy as the method is fixed and clear. Data that is to be collected is known as unwanted information can be saved out. Next importance is maximum efficiency and reliability. It helps to get maximum efficiency and reliability when a plan is made in advance. The execution becomes easier and systematic. There is awareness about the research part leading to an efficient execution. Next importance is eliminate the bias and a marginal error. It eliminates bias and a marginal error. The design created is devoid of subjectivity. When a design is objective, then the researcher bias is eliminated. Next, minimize wastages of time. It minimizes wastages of time when the design defines a time-bound implementation of research. Next, helpful in collecting research material. It is helpful in collecting research material as a researcher knows the requirement for conducting the research. Material may be in the terms of hardware, software, raw material and people, etc. that are needed for a successful research. It is a given an idea regarding the type of resource required in terms of money, manpower, times and efforts. And lastly, the helpful for the testing of hypothesis. It is a helpful for testing of hypothesis. Defining a statistical testing of hypothesis is facilitated. A design can be given to other experts for their comment and a critical evaluation. It provides an overview to other experts. Now in this slide we go with there are various steps in research design. The first one, title of the research. The title of a research should be properly worded. It should throw the light on the entire activity to be conducted. It should be easy for anybody to draw a proper meaning for the purpose study to be undertaken. The title so selected for the study should not be biased. It should not be emotional. It must be scientific in approach to its indication or the subject matter. Secondly, the statement of problem. It is the expression of the title statement related to explanation of the problem. It should contain main aspect of the problem identification and specify the research area. This should include scope and a limitation of the study. This should be related to the object of the study by providing earlier studies conducted. Plan for the study should be properly defined at this stage. Thirdly, objective of the study. The objective should be very clear in the mind of the researcher as this will lead to the clarity of the design and a proper response from the respondent. Next, nature of the study. The research design should be very much in relation with the nature of the study which is to be carried out. Next, review of the literature. The researcher must be review existing available literature which is object in of developing the hypothesis from it. In some research studies, hypothesis may be stated by preview researcher. In this stage, stock of variety of various hypotheses should be evaluated for its usefulness. Next, sources of information. This indicate the outline of meta and a procedure for collecting for data. This may be for in the form of primary or secondary sources. The design should indicate the choice of the type of data to be collected based on the nature of the study. Next, technique of data collection. For the collection of the required information, it sometimes becomes very necessary to use some spatial technique. Next, social cultural context. Research design based on a social cultural concept is prepared in order to avoid the various study variation. Second last will be your the geographical limit. This step become unnecessary at this point of time as with the help of this step, research links to the hypothesis applies only to certain number of social groups. And lastly, the basis of selection. The selecting a proper sample act as a very important and critical step, and this is done with the help of some mechanic like drawing or random stratified, deliberate, double cluster or the quota sampling, etc. Now we'll go with sample design. Now what means by sample design here? A sample design is determined before data are collected. There are many sample designs from which a researcher can choose. Some designs are relatively more precise and easier to apply than others. Researcher must select, prepare a sample design which should be reliable and appropriate for his research study. Now in this chapter we will go with the different sampling method. Now there are two different methods are there. The first one which is known as non-probability sampling method or you can say sample design, and the second one which is known as probability sampling method. Now right now I am going to be explain what means by non-probability sampling method. In a non-probability sampling method, are those which do not provide every items in a universe with a known chance of being included in a sample. This selection process is at least particularly that is a subjective. The first one which is known as convenience sampling. A convenience sampling is obtained by selecting convenient population unit. The method of convenience sampling is also called the chunk. A chunk refers to that fraction of the population being investigated which is selected neither by probability nor by judgment but by convenience. Second one, which is known as a judgment sampling. A judgment sampling is a type of non-random sampling and is also called purposive sampling or deliberate sampling. In this method of sampling, the choice of sample items depend exclusively on the judgment of the investigator. In other words, the investigator exercises his judgment in a choice and include those items in the sample which is think are most typical of the universe with regard to the characteristic under investigation. For example, if sample of 10 students is to be selected from a class of 60 for analyzing the spending habit of student, the investigator will select 10 students who is in opinion are representative of the class. Next one, which is known as a quota sampling. In a quota sampling is a type of judgment sampling and is perhaps the most commonly used sampling technique in non-probability category. In a quota sampling, quotas are set up according to some specific characteristic such as so many in each of the several income groups, so many in each age, so many with certain political or religious affiliation, and so on. Each interviewer is then told to interview a certain number of persons which constitute his quota. Within the quota, the selection of sample item depends on personal judgment. The next one we can say a snowball sampling. A snowball sampling is known as a non-probability sampling in which selection of additional respondent is based on referral from the initial respondent. For example, an advertisement was given to get some data relating to workshop machine and a respondent were asked to give name and address of the people who use sample or the similar type of machine. The next type will go with the probability sampling method or you can say sample design. In a simple or unrestricted random sampling, to the sampling technique in which each and every unit of the population has to be equal opportunity of being selected in a sample. They are characterized by the way in which they are selected. Random is not used here in a sense of a hit or miss. In simple random sampling, which items get selected in the sample is just a matter of chance. Personal bias of the investigator does not influence the selection. It should be noted that the word random does not mean a hit or miss. It rather means that the selection process in such the chance only determine which items shall be included in the sample. Next one, which is known as a stratified sampling. A stratified sampling is also a method which is known as a probability, that is a sampling method. In a stratified sampling is a way of getting an average which represents the entire universe or everything that exists that somebody want to count or measure. The entire universe is broken down into groups that don't overlap and a sample is taken from each group. A stratified sample is a probability sampling technique in which the researcher divides the entire target population into different subgroups or strata and then randomly select the finite subject proportionally from the different strata. This type of sampling is used when the researcher wants to highlight specific subgroup within the population. Next, which is known as a cluster sampling. A cluster sampling, if the total area of interest happen to be a big one, a convenient way in which a sample can be taken is to divide the area into a number of smaller non-overlapping area and then to randomly select a number of these smaller area, usually called cluster, with the ultimate sample consisting of all a sample of unit in this small area or a cluster. Thus, in cluster sampling, the total population is divided into a number of relatively small subdivision, which are themselves cluster of still small unit. And then some of this cluster are randomly selected for inclusion in the overall sample. And lastly, we can say here, which is known as a multi-stage sampling. A multi-stage sampling is a sampling strategy used when conducting studies involving a very large population. The entire population is divided into a naturally occurring clusters and the subclusters from which the researcher randomly select the sample. For example, you want to conduct a survey of salespeople for a nationwide retail chain and a store all over the country. You could randomly select countries in each state, randomly select store in each country, and randomly select a salespeople in those stores.